about the last presentation that actually stuck with you? Not the one with the beautiful charts. The one you were still thinking about it 3 weeks later. There was a story in there somewhere. A moment where the speaker stopped performing and started sharing something real. It's not a coincidence. That connection is the entire point of speaking in the first place. Welcome back to Speaking with Confidence, the podcast that helps you build the soft skills that lead to real results. Communication, storytelling, public speaking, and showing up with confidence in every conversation that counts. I'm Tim Newman, recovering college professor turned communication coach, and I'm thrilled to guide you on a journey to becoming a powerful communicator. Most people think confident speakers have some kind of natural gift, some better energy, a louder personality, something you either have or you don't. But guess what? That's completely wrong. The most confident speakers on the planet are not the ones with the most credentials or the most expensive slides. They're the ones who know how to tell a good story. And today, I'm going to show you exactly why stories work, how they build trust faster than any data point ever could, and the one practical technique that separates forgettable speakers from the ones who actually change how people think. Let's get into it. Here's something to change how I prepare for every single talk. When you stand up and present raw facts, the audience's brain activates two small regions, just the language processing centers. You're essentially sending them a dry text file and hoping they hit save. But when you tell a story, something completely different happens. Their entire brain lights up. The sensory cortex fires. The emotional centers go into overdrive. You're not just transmitting information anymore, you're actually creating an experience. Scientists call this neural coupling. In plain English, the audience syncs up with you. When I describe standing backstage with my heart pounding so hard I can hear it, your brain doesn't just file that away as data. It mirrors the experience. The same regions that would fire if you were standing there, terrified, start activating in your own mind. And here's the number that should change how you prepare every talk. Cognitive psychologist Jerome Bruner found that facts wrapped in a narrative are 22 times more likely to be remembered than facts alone. Let that sink in. It's not 22%, it's 22 times. And that's why you can sit through 40 minutes of quarterly data and walk away with nothing, but remember a story about a terrible client meeting for years. Your brain tags a good story as vital and files it where you can actually find it. And here's the part most professionals get completely backwards. The fastest way to build authority on stage has nothing to do with your long list of accomplishments or credentials. In fact, the most powerful thing you can do in the first 60 seconds is share something you got wrong. I know that sounds completely backwards, but audiences are smarter than we give them credit for. They can smell a polished performance from the very first sentence. And that level of polish usually reads as guarded, not confident. Research from the Harvard Business Review found that leaders who share personal setbacks are rated as more credible by the people listening to them. Not less. More. I used to open every talk with a standard bio. Who I was, what I'd done, proof that they should be listening to me. And the audiences were polite, they nodded, but they weren't really with me. Everything changed when I opened with a story of the worst speech I ever gave. And I know you all have heard it. It's the one where I threw up in front of the class. And once I told that story, the energy shifted. Because everyone in that room had bombed something before. And they realized I wasn't up there pretending to be perfect. That's the strange paradox of storytelling. The more you reveal the moments where you had no power, the more authority you actually build. And audiences don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be useful. And the most useful thing you can give them is evidence that someone who has been exactly where they are has figured out how to move forward. Most speakers tell you what happened. But great speakers make you feel like you were standing right there. And the difference comes down to one thing: showing instead of telling. Here's what telling sounds like. I was nervous before the presentation. That's a summary. It doesn't do anything to the audience. They hear it and they move on. Now here's showing. Was standing backstage and my shirt was sticking to my back. My notes were in my hand, but I've read the same sentence 4 times without knowing what it says. Then the stage manager says, I have 30 seconds. Same information, completely different experience. When you show instead of tell, you're not reporting emotions. You're giving the audience the raw material to feel those emotions for themselves. And because they did that work, the story becomes theirs. That's what makes a message stick long after the talk is over. The practical implication is simple, but it does take practice. Go through your stories and flag every sentence that tells the audience how you felt. Phrases like, I was embarrassed, or the feedback was harsh, those are telling. Rewrite each one by describing what you actually saw or heard in that specific moment. What did the room look like? What physical sensation did you notice? Here's a quick test. If your story could be delivered by anyone and still work, you're telling. If the story only works because of the specific details that only you would know, you're showing. Don't tell me the room was tense when you walked in. Tell me nobody touched the coffee and pastry sitting on the side table. That's the stuff real people remember. The number one mistake I see is speakers announcing their stories before they actually tell them. Please, I'm begging you, don't say, let me tell you a story. That's basically giving them the audience a permission to check their phone for a minute. Drop them straight into the action. If you're talking about how to handle a tough boss, don't set it up. Just say, 3 years ago, my manager called me into her office and shut the door. And by the time they realize you're telling a story, they're already hooked. Second, every story has to earn its place. It should either prove the point you just made, set up the one coming up next, or show the audience exactly how to use your advice in the real world. And if it doesn't do one of those 3 things, cut it. And third is keep it tight. If you can't get through it in, say, under 90 seconds, it's not ready for the stage yet. Now, understand that that's just kind of an arbitrary number, but the story should only be as long as it needs to be. Don't put the fluff in it. Make it short, concise, and tight so that people get the message. Record yourself and listen to it back, and you'll hear exactly where the energy drops. And then finally, you need to make sure you land the plane. Don't let the audience wonder why you told the story. Give them one sentence that bridges back to your main point. Something like, that experience taught me that preparation doesn't stop the nerves. It just gives you something to lean on when they show up. And that one bridge sentence is what turns a simple anecdote into a pool that actually changes how people think. Confident speakers are not naturally more talented. They still get nervous. They still have bad days. But they understand something most presenters never figure out. And that is that stories do the work that facts just can't handle. A good story builds trust faster than any list of credentials. It makes your message stick long after the data has been forgotten. And it creates a kind of genuine connection that no polished slide deck will ever give you. So here's your challenge for this week. Find one moment from your own life that connects to something you teach, present, or sell. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be real. Practice telling it in about 60 seconds. Strip out the telling and add the showing. And that's the first brick. And everything else builds from there. That's all for today. Remember, we're looking for progress, not perfection. Be sure to visit speakingwithconfidencepodcast.com to get your free ebook, The Top 21 Challenges for Public Speakers and How to Overcome Them. You can also register for the Formula for Public Speaking course. Always remember, your voice has the power to change the world. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.